Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. And my name is Gabi. As you know, I'm with Animal Services, and I have the pleasure of introducing this time not only my very good friend, but an amazing coworker. She is our amazing behavior coordinator at Animal Services, Miss Natalie Leon.
Hello. That's me.
And we have Bella here with us. Say hi, Belly. Belly's a cute little 8-year-old, little terrier mix. She's a cute little mutt. We don't even know what she is, but she's adorable. She's got the biggest ears. We call her Grandma Juice. It's an inside joke at the shelter, but she is adorable and she's available for adoption. So please make sure to inquire about her by calling 311 or sending us a DM on our socials. We're more than happy to answer a few questions about this little cutie who's just going to do her thing while we hang out and discuss. So yeah. Natalie, just because this is your first time on here, and I would just want the viewers to get to know you. So tell us how you got involved with animal services and animal sheltering and your background with behavior and stuff like that. So tell us how it all started.
Yeah. Wow. That's like a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, but breaking the ice.
I guess I've been working in animal sheltering, specifically centered on dogs for like 8 years now. It's pretty much all I've ever done. I obviously always loved animals growing up. I was very drawn to them. Actually, I'm like super allergic to dogs and cats actually. So when I was little, my parents had like a whole battle trying to keep me away from dogs, and I was always like running to them and they would always find us. And so when I was little, I wanted to be a vet because that seems like the obvious choice. If you want to work with animals, you become a veterinarian. I went to the University of Florida. First year, went in pre-vet bio major, and quickly realized that like I'm not a science and math girl. I'm really not.
Same.
And so I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know how I'm going to work with animals, but I know that that's what I'm meant to be doing. And so it'll just kind of find its way to me. And yeah, this ensued basically the beginning of my career, even though I didn't realize it was. I started working with a pit bull rescue in Gainesville, Florida. Started fostering pit bulls, really fell in love with them. I had 2 cats at the time. And so I always had like a pit bull and 2 cats in my little 1-bedroom apartment. And that just opened up a whole world of new opportunities. I started volunteering with the ASPCA's field investigation and response team.
Fun.
Because the pit bull rescue that I worked with was like a partner with them. And so I got a lot of experience into a whole world that I didn't really know existed. So I kind of spent that whole time discovering more and more about what exactly it was that I wanted to do with animals.
She plopped slide.
In what capacity? It was probably always going to be dogs. I love cats, but I feel like I have a certain understanding with dogs I don't have with other animals.
And this is how we became friends.
This is how we became friends. Exactly. Because if you get it, you get it.
If you get it, you get it.
And the dogs get it. And the dogs will show you like who the people with the good vibes are.
Who the people with the good vibes are.
So yeah, I volunteered a lot with the ASPCA for about 2 years, working with dogfighting dogs, hoarding case dogs, all sorts of cruelty cases. And what really sparked my interest in behavior specifically, and or realizing that this was like an actual potential like career path, was watching them run play groups with dogfighting dogs. So dogs that were bred and born and taught to fight each other and other dogs, learning how to play. And when you give them the option to not fight and teach them how to play properly, a lot of them would actually be like, oh, this is way better.
This is fun.
I actually don't want to
attack
fight other dogs. I actually would love to play with them. And so watching that like transition and that change, and how the behavior team at the time sort of taught these dogs how to be dogs and giving them the option to not fight really like sparked my interest. I was working in like the animal care part, so helping care for these animals while their cases were ongoing in court. And I would finish up all my stuff and like run over to watch playgroup as much as possible, and like always listening to the behavior people's like conversations. And I couldn't get enough. Like I was in college, but I was always traveling to go take care of these animals and learn more about this. And so that's what really like sparked my interest. And then yeah, my path was kind of all over the place. I lived in Connecticut for a little bit, helping a friend run a pit bull rescue. I moved back home. Didn't really like Connecticut. It's not for me.
Okay.
I'm more of a Miami girl for sure.
Facts.
And then
weather.
I worked at the Humane Society of Broward for 2 years. Loved it there, but there was no room for me to grow. And so I just got a lot of practice handling the dogs and learning a lot about what these dogs kind of go through and what their behaviors look like in the shelter and how we can help them, which I know we'll talk more about later, but how we can kind of help them acclimate to that environment and then find their forever homes, and how the shelter acts as a sort of like halfway home between a not so great past and hopefully like a better future for them, basically. And yeah, how I ended up at ASD is kind of a lot of in between. But Animal Services, Miami-Dade Animal Services created this position, the behavior coordinator position, and the enrichment program very recently, actually.
Yeah, you're our first behavior coordinator.
Ago. So I'm the first behavior coordinator.
And you're about to make your year, or you just made it?
I'm about to, in like 3 days.
Okay,
like
so congrats. She made it. She passed probation. That's always a success at Animal Services.
It is a huge success.
And you've been killing it with our enrichment team, because I know you work very closely with the enrichment team. But I want to discuss more on the behavior aspect of it, because I don't think a lot of people understand the challenges that are presented with behavior dogs, specifically like what do behavior concerned dogs often face in the shelter? Like, how is their life when they come in, and how do you assess them, and how do you transition them to be able to be moved on to the adoption floor?
Yeah, it's a process, and I think the most difficult thing about helping people understand, including our own staff, understand what goes into that is that every single dog is different, and every single dog responds differently to different things, and they have different sort of traumas in their mind, and so they have different responses, but the majority of dogs that come into our shelter, and pretty much any shelter, are fearful. So they are coming from whatever situation they're coming from, typically not that great, into a very loud, very fearful, very overwhelming, very overstimulating environment. And so they're terrified. 95% of the time, the dogs are terrified. Occasionally we get a dog like Bella, who's pretty much just happy to just be around people, and she's not stressed about anything. And she's just like, there's people, great. I'm having a great time. Dogs barking, like she doesn't really mind it, but the majority of our dogs are very fearful. And so the fear presents itself in many, many different ways, depending on the dog. And a lot of things that are often interpreted as aggression is actually a dog just showcasing how terrified they are of you, of everything, of all the people around them, strangers around them, dogs around them, the sounds, the smells, the sights. And we have to remember that dogs' senses are much stronger than ours. And so when we walk into the kennels and the pods, the sound is overwhelming for us.
For sure. My watch yells at me all the time.
And for the dogs, it's 10, 20, 30 times full. Of course. So when I go to assess a dog, it's typically because upon intake, they showed some sort of behavior concern, whatever that means. Basically, the dog did not look like Bella. It did not run up to you. You couldn't just leash it. And it didn't just jump into your arms type of thing. And that is the majority of our dogs. And so I have to look at the dog in front of me, get as much information from their past as possible, which typically is nothing.
Right. Typically it is hard because most of our dogs are strays.
Information, and they can't speak and they can't tell us what they've been through. And so I have to kind of look at their behavior, look at their body language, and determine, like, you know, if they flinch away from the leash, maybe. A lot of dogs are terrified of the kinds of leashes that we use because we don't use these clip leashes. We use slip over the head leashes. So they go over the head. A lot of dogs are like, whoa, because if they have been in the streets, or if they lived in a home, or if at any point they had a person, which pretty much every dog at some point had a person. They've never seen this leash, and so they're terrified of that. And so sometimes it's just helping them get used to the leash slipping over their head over and over again. And a lot of the dogs, once we take them out a couple of times and start to kind of acclimate them to, like, this is where you live now. This is where you're going to be for the foreseeable future. you know, they start to kind of acclimate to a routine. Okay, every day I get taken out with this leash. Every day I go into the same place. I'm getting used to the fact that there's dogs screaming all the time and there's sounds. Every day they take me out so they can clean my kennel. The volunteers come by and they start to sort of acclimate to the routine of their daily lives, sort of adjust to what this looks like now. And once those dogs show me that they've sort of calmed down a little bit, their body language sort of loosens up, and I start to assess how they're going to be able to handle what they need to handle in the shelter. So it's like a two-part thing. It's how they handle whatever they're going to need to handle in the shelter, and then what these dogs are going to look like in a home. So that's where things like the foster program and different events like this help us see the dogs outside of the shelter, and that'll show us what they'll potentially look like in a home environment, because it's two different things, and it's a big challenge for these dogs is acclimating to the shelter life. And then when they go into their new home or foster home, that environment changes again.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our dogs that come in very fearful eventually acclimate to the shelter, and they're thriving even. They love playgroup. They love getting walked by volunteers. They're like, okay, this is my everyday.
And then they get adopted.
And I'm chilling. Then they get adopted. Then they go on transport. Then they go to an event, whatever it may be. And suddenly everything changes
kind of
again.
reverses.
And they're like, wait, I have to adjust all over again. This is a whole different kind of environment. And while a lot of times it's not as stressful because there's not a million dogs screaming everywhere,
she's having the time of her life.
She does not feel any stress ever. She's just like,
she's just chilling.
And I wish that
most of the
all
dogs
of our dogs could, you know, handle a change in environment and things like that, like Bella can, because it obviously makes their lives a lot easier. These dogs are 1 in a million. They're very resilient.
Very resilient. And it's very rare that we do get dogs like this that are
perfectly natural and perfectly normal for the dogs to showcase and display the sorts of behaviors that they do, which, like, you know, I know we'll talk about a little bit too, because they've been through a lot and they're terrified. And, you know, while Bella has also probably been through a lot, she's very forgiving, and she's, you know, she doesn't hold any grudges. She doesn't bring her trauma with her.
Especially not if you have a treat. Wink,
especially
wink.
not if you have a treat. Even without the treats, look at her. No treats involved, and she's just like,
she's still like just having fun. She's like, just pet me,
and I'm just gonna put on my own little show.
Yeah, like this feels amazing on my back right now.
Cute. But yeah, so, you know, it's perfectly normal for our dogs to bring a lot of their trauma, and depending on what they've kind of been through, you know, if they were physically abused or just verbally abused,
any type of abuse,
they showcase different kinds of behaviors. And so some dogs put on a very big display, teeth, lunging, growling, the whole thing, trying to get you to go away because they're so scared. You know, like Juice is our, you know, special child. But yeah, a lot of dogs have issues with strangers or just people, and you put them in a cage and there's noises everywhere. Don't do that. And they're gonna do everything they can to back you away, because they don't understand that we're trying to help them, for example. And
she barely has teeth. She's not gonna get through that.
Especially not this, like, this material. They don't understand that we're trying to help them. And so it's sort of helping them understand that we are trying to help them, and then making this environment, you know, working with what we got, and like trying to help them adjust and acclimate in any way that we can. But the assessments are, you know, I'll figure out how much time I have to spend with this dog, and what sorts of different things. Sometimes they're terrified of people, and if we put them with other dogs, they'll blossom. So the other dogs will kind of be like, hey, come on, let's play. Look, these people love to pet us. We love to get affection from them. And so other dogs learn, honestly, best from other dogs. But from other dogs, exactly. And so this dog runs up and asks you for affection, and the other dog's like, oh, well, maybe it's not so bad.
Try,
So a lot of times we'll just, the really, really fearfuls, we'll just throw them with other dogs, and sort of you'll start to see them come out of their shell when we put them with more confident dogs. Obviously, we won't put extremely fearful dogs with other extremely fearful
helper dogs, as you call them, right?
Yeah, and Bella can be considered one of our helper dogs for sure. So our helper dogs help us either assess a dog's sociability with other dogs in general. And by that, I mean our helper dogs, they won't escalate a situation if another dog doesn't seem to know what to do. If a dog is confused, then this helper dog will sort of show them the ropes and sort of show them like, no, that's not what we do. We do it like this, or like we play like this, and they'll kind of teach them, and then we'll go expanding their friends. But our helper dogs are super important to sort of either helping our fearful dogs acclimate to the environment, or helping some dogs that just seem like they've never really even been with dogs before learn how to properly dog.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, that was a lot of information on specifically on like, you know, the assessments and fearful dogs. But I also kind of want to get into, because you work really closely with the enrichment team. So can you talk about like the impact of stress and boredom on shelter dogs and how it manifests behaviorally? Like, how does that affect their behavior?
Yeah, so the enrichment team helps the dogs that are currently on the adoption floor, help them from deteriorating. So it helps them like survive mentally in the shelter longer and helps them be able to survive until they find their forever home, ideally, is the goal. And so the dogs spend the majority of their day in a very small space,
right,
with that stimulation constantly ongoing. It's the dogs barking 24/7, you know, the sights, the sounds, the smells, people walking by. And so it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot to take. It's a lot for us.
Truthfully, the dogs are not meant to live in those sorts of conditions. The shelter is meant to be very temporary, and the population crisis is real. And so we have too many dogs, and that means that we can't spend enough individualized attention and giving these dogs what they really need on a daily basis. You know, and so they do spend a lot of time in those kennels, and that manifests itself in different ways as well. So the dogs get very bored. They start chewing the wall. You'll see some dogs leaned up against the front of the kennel just drooling. And we'll have dogs that like are covered in their own drool because they're so stressed. You know, we have dogs that started off pretty okay, pretty stable, you know, being able to be leashed and walked and not having any issues. And then they start to sort of develop issues from stress. So they'll start to grab at the leash, and it's like, you know, you would think that they understand, okay, the leash means you get to go outside, but when they're so stressed out, they start to kind of develop these like almost obnoxious behaviors of like, I'm just doing stuff for attention, and I'm just like, I need you to know that I'm very stressed. And so they'll grab at the leash when you're trying to leash them, and sometimes it'll take us 10 minutes to leash a dog because you're like trying to leash him and he's jumping up and down and sticking his paws in the leash and he's grabbing at it. Sometimes, you know,
sometimes they go at the neighbor.
Exactly. So sometimes they're yelling at the other dog, and we'll have the friendliest dogs, great with other dogs, exhibit barrier reactivity, which is a big thing. And so barrier reactivity is essentially any time that there is any sort of barrier in front of the dog, be it the glass of the kennel, be it a chain link fence, even a leash counts as a barrier, so to speak. It's something that's stopping the dog from accessing whatever it is on the other side. And so we have dogs that are incredible with people, incredible with other dogs, and in the kennel, they're lunging at the glass and they're barking and their
presentation is just very
yelling
poor.
And they look awful. Right. And then people walk by, our customers walk by, and they're like, "Oh, that dog is a menace. Aggressive.
Yeah, I'm not going to take that.
That dog is terrible."
Right.
And so we know that these dogs are incredible. And when you take them out of the kennel, they look like this.
Right.
They're incredible. And they have the best personalities, but because they're so stressed and or bored, that's just the way that dogs show that stress and boredom. And people don't really understand that because dogs are not people, you know, like this is how dogs show that they're stressed out. And so they become increasingly difficult. And I have dogs that deteriorate, some deteriorate faster than others, and some can handle it longer. But once they start to sort of deteriorate, it becomes a scramble for figuring out what we can do for them. So enrichment is a really big thing. You know, frozen Kongs and Nylabones and different things that they can chew on, food puzzles, things that they can chew on and use their minds and use their brains to sort of give them something to do in this kennel so that they're not just concerned about everything going on around them all the time. Right. And that's where the enrichment team kind of comes in, and that's where playgroup comes in as well. Playgroup is a huge thing for the dogs in the shelter because we put dogs with other dogs. We teach them how to properly socialize. That in turn makes them more adoptable. It gives us more information on what kinds of dogs this dog would prefer to play with. So Bella's pretty well-rounded. She's older for sure, but she'll play with the youngest of the young and the most hyper dogs. She can also hang out with the old crowd, and she's very well-rounded.
Superstar. Yeah,
for sure. But we have some dogs that only like males. We have some dogs that only like females. We have some dogs that prefer more high energy, low energy, things like that. And that gives us more information so that when adopters come in saying, hey, I have a dog that's like this, I want a dog for this dog, or I don't have any dogs, and this is the lifestyle that I live, we can then pair them up with
the ideal match.
And that's kind of a lot of what enrichment does, and what I'm doing as well is learning as much as we can about these dogs to find them different outcomes. And it's not just adoptions. We have rescues and transports, and
I mean, yeah, you work with
different
several
kinds of
different programs within the shelter, not just in the enrichment team, but you work with our foster coordinators.
For sure.
You work with volunteers, you work with the adoption counselors, because they're the ones that do a lot of the meet and greets. You work with the kennel team that has to take care of all these dogs.
Yep.
You work with us
communications
here, with communications, giving us dogs for when we need to make media appearances that are, you know, in really need of a home, like Bella here. I will continue to push for Bella's adoption.
Bella.
You guys need to adopt Bella.
This sort of like platform is huge because things like barrier activity and those kinds of things that prevent dogs from getting adopted when we know that they're really great dogs.
Licking my feet. It's so uncomfortable.
Education's a huge part of that, you know, so trying to get customers and potential adopters to understand, you know, let this dog, like, meet this dog on the outside, and understanding that these dogs have never had like a lot of them have never had a true home, have never had true guidance. And so when you take this dog home, it's not just gonna magically understand how it fits into your life and the kinds of things that you need. And so the dog may not be housebroken because it lived outside his whole life. And so you'll have to be a little patient in teaching the dog to go to the bathroom outside. You have to clean up some accidents and maybe crate training the dog because it can be destructive or bored when it's not there. But the dogs have a big adjustment period when they're going home too. And it's the 3x3 rule. Sort of the 3-3-3.
The 3x3 rule. So no, you can do it because you're a guest and you can explain it so much better than I can. So explain to our audience.
100 times.
I know we do it on the lives all the time. So
and we'll do it to the day we die.
Exactly.
We will not stop.
We can't.
3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months is our typical rule for dogs adjustment. You chewing my shoelaces?
Dude, she's having a blast with us here.
For dogs adjusting in the home. So, and my parents literally just took home a new dog. And so we're doing
the cutest little thing. Flash, finally, is the name?
His name is Flash.
Okay.
He's the slowest dog alive, and so it's kind of an ironic name.
The irony of it
and
all.
we have 2 cats, a Chihuahua.
This is Natalie's third dog from the shelter.
And
I gave her her first one, so I'm very proud of that.
I've worked there for a year, and my parents have taken home three dogs. 3 dogs.
Yeah, I worked there for 5, but I only have 1.
Gabi, I don't know how that worked out. And I've worked in a lot of shelters, and I've never taken
as many dogs. But I did hook her up with her first dog. It was actually for her parents, so she does not claim ownership of her dog, especially not as after she gained weight. Sorry, Natalie's parents, if you're hearing
obese, but it's fine.
But then she took a foster home, which is still her foster because she's a special case. And we're just waiting for her to be released. And pretty sure Natalie's going to keep her too. And then now she has another.
And now
dog.
We have Flash.
And now she has Flash.
Who's very special in a lot of ways.
Well, so is my dog.
You can sort of tell that, you can sort of tell that he's probably lived outside his whole life. He has sort of like pressure sores that come from laying in the concrete a lot and things like that. And has weird reactions to everyday household items. So he's like, whoa, when you like open the dishwasher and you're like,
poor thing.
Oh, it's a dishwasher. So you can tell when they have reactions like that, they've never seen those things before, which means they probably
she's
break my shoelace. Then I won't be able to tie my shoe. So 3-3-3, right? First 3 days. So when the dogs are in the shelter, they're in a constant state of stress. And like I said, what we do is try to help them cope with that stress. But their hormone levels, their everything levels are all the way up here all the time. They probably never had a good night's rest. And so the first 3 days, like, the dog is
Bella
adjusting and learning.
Bella, come here.
How to
hey.
Leave the shoes alone. You should have brought your little toy or something here. You know what?
Just let her chew on the leash. Just let, you don't even have to hold on to her. She's not gonna move.
So yeah, the first 3 days the dog is just
please hold. I love how they put you on the wide angle so that they can see that.
Leave this. I'm gonna tuck him in. Stop. No.
Belly, we're talking about how good you are. You over here chewing shoelaces? Come on. She's great. I promise. Either way, she is. She's just like, what's happening? Like, why are we just sitting here? Yeah.
Okay. Well, they're tucked in now. So, really quick. First 3 days, they're just like like what's going on. They're like exploring the house and, never.
This is very
throw
distracting.
them into the house with all the other animals, right? So you don't want to come home and be like, here you go,
be best friends,
everyone, and they're like in their house in the living room, and all
especially
the
with your own dogs already that they're like, whoa,
like
what
our animals
is this
are in
stranger?
their home, they're adjusted to their home, and they're like, who is this?
Stranger.
Especially Venus.
Yeah.
Venus is like, absolutely not. What is going on here?
Yeah.
This is my house.
This is my house.
And she's fine with little dogs because she's like, all right, you're not that big of a deal. But when you bring a big dog in, she's like, this dog is taking up my space.
What's this? Nobody ran this by me.
If we had brought the dog home and just thrown it in, Venus probably would not have appreciated that at all. And so slow intros are very important when it comes to other pets. But first 3 days is just like their hormone levels are going down. They're just like calming down. They're probably getting their first good night's sleep in a very long time. Everything's quiet. And so it's like the ultimate adjustment. It's a very stark contrast from like all day, every day. It's just like stress, and like yelling and all this. And then I go home and it's like quiet. Yeah. It's almost like, it's like leaving prison kind of thing, like that kind of like adjustment. 3 weeks is sort of, they start to acclimate to your routine, to your daily life. When I wake up in the morning, you feed me and then you walk me, and this is how we do it every day. And so now when I wake up, I know what to expect.
Come here. You gotta... Come on, just a few more minutes.
Oh my gosh, you must be so bored.
All right, so 3 weeks.
So 3 weeks is sort of, and we haven't even hit the 3 week mark with Flash yet. It's actually
it's coming up.
A week.
Oh, only?
I took him home on Friday.
Just kidding. So then, yeah, today's a week.
Literally been a week. So
shout out to Flash.
He's still acclimating, and he is still a foster. So we're just kind of testing out and seeing how it goes with the family, but I know my parents, so I know they're gonna keep him. Right.
But Vini and Bella have both passed. But Venus
and Bella need to. Yeah, they definitely have.
I know Vini has. I just wasn't sure about Bella.
Yeah, and even then, that was a big thing, is that we've only had Venus for
since October.
Since like October, September? So November, December, January, like 4 months, right? And so when we're bringing a new dog home, we've only had Venus for 4 months. Right. So it's like,
so you still don't fully know her.
We still don't know everything there is to know about Venus. We haven't thrown her into every possible scenario. We haven't seen her reaction. So I do like to push my dogs and try to figure out their reaction to certain things in like a safe, controlled environment, to then know what it would be like when I have to bring new animals home or whatever. But yeah, 3 weeks, they're sort of acclimating to your routine, and you guys are finally kind of getting to know each other. But you really don't know each other or really start to know each other well until you hit that 3 months. And you want to joke that it's kind of like dating, you know, but it is a lot like that. When you hit 3 months is when you're actually like starting to have real conversations and like, actually feel like you kind of know each other and know each other's little quirks and habits.
Right.
And so, yeah, we just hit 3 months with Venus, and we just brought home a new dog, and he just hit a week. And so we're all me and my family are stuck in this
this 3x3 with 3 different dogs
rule. But it is true. It takes time. And so when we have adopters take a dog home and then return it within 24 hours, it's like you didn't even really give it a chance.
Yeah. So the 3x3 rule is obviously very important, especially to those looking to add a new family member. And speaking of dating... just throwing that in there. Hello.
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day just passed, but we are still celebrating with the Find the Love of Your Life event that we're going to be having this Saturday, tomorrow, specifically at Medley from 1 to 5, but we're also having it at our Doral location as well, which is where Bella's going to be. So if somebody's watching and is interested in being Bella's forever match, I would say, stop by our shelter. Adoption fees are going to be waived on both locations. Again, Medley will be specifically from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., but our Doral location is open from 10 to 4 on the weekends, and adoption fees are going to be completely waived. The Miami Heat is sponsoring them yet again.
Yes.
So every dog over the age of 4 months will go home absolutely free. And remember that when you adopt a pet from us, you're not only getting a dog that's already sterilized, already microchipped, already vaccinated. So it's a really good deal. And to top it off, the dogs at the Medley event that get adopted are going to get a take-home goodie bag with, like, you know, all the first-time essentials that they need, leash, collar, some treats, you know, and I think even some coupons. So it's a great family event. It's going to be a carnival type setting. We're going to have popcorn. We're going to have cotton candy. Bounce house.
I don't know.
It's going to be fun. Me and Natalie are going to be there.
I will be there. No bounce house.
Oh, no bounce house? Just kidding. Sorry. We spoke too soon. Sorry. But it's still going to be fun. A family event for everybody to come on by. And like we mentioned, me and Natalie are going to be here. We'll be more than happy to give out autographs.
Obviously, if we're there. Obviously, if we're there, it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. And we'll have plenty of dogs. Remember, we have over 100 dogs at our Medley location that are available for adoption. So we're hoping that the community will join us and stop by tomorrow and find the love of your life and do your 3x3 rule and get to know your dog by the 3 months of dating.
In my life.
I know.
I have a couple.
You do. Even the dogs that you don't own. So
literally.
It's fine. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. You gave us a lot of information, and we hope to have you back again in the future so we can discuss more of this. But
thanks, bestie.
She said bestie. I'm so happy. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and please be sure to share this video and adopt Bella.